entire video done. All of it was done. I broke it down. I was happy with it. You know, everything could come together. And then I go to export it, and it didn't even save the video. So this is my second attempt at doing this about the KKK. This full breakdown. I'm maybe late to the party, but at least I made it. I almost did make it to this one. This is my third video, actually, recording this. It's been that difficult finding out new information. It's been that difficult just being a black man talking about the Ku Klux Klan. So everything, now is the perfect time. I got my AC on. I got my new glasses. You know, I can see better. I'm feeling better a little bit. I'm still having trouble with my knee and my hip too. I gotta go get a whole nother MRI. I'm going through the ringer. But aside from all of that, I love doing this. I love journalism. I love interviewing people. I love finding out new information and informing the public about that. I feel like that's one of the most important things that we can do as journalists or people of public influence or musicians. You know, like myself, like you see behind me, my keyboard, my mic. I got two mics. I got a whole setup because I do this. You know what I mean? I love it. You know, I don't get paid for this. I'm not monetizing yet. But you know, I'm still, you know, getting the hang of everything. So I really hope you enjoy. I have like a lot. Let's see if it'll. I have a lot of facts, a lot of stuff. So I'm gonna be going over a few of these things that I've learned about the KKK that you might not know, man. So strap in. Let's go down the rabbit hole. So, what most people do know about the Ku Klux Klan is it was started after the Civil War, directly right after the Civil War in 1865. 6 Civil War veterans banded together and formed what we now know today as the Ku Klux Klan, or the KKK, a white supremacist group based in Pulaski, Tennessee, which is where these 6 men came together and formed the KKK, or the Ku Klux Klan. The name is really unknown origins because they're such a secretive group, and certain people have been able to infiltrate the group, and also historians have researched it. So the two main synopses came up with the origin of the name is, it said it was rumored to where the sound of cocking a shotgun, like click clack or cluck cluck, you know, that real deep, you know, sound you get of the shell being loaded into the barrel chamber. That's where it was said to come from, to scare, you know, people that they were intimidating, mostly black people, mainly, especially during the first era. And also, it comes from the Greek word kuklos, and that is said to mean a closed circle or a close circle. And it was it's said to symbolize how they're like a closed circle of a brotherhood. It's said to be like a fraternity. It said they said that they started it to really tell war stories and make fun of former slaves and prank and tease them and drink. You know, it was just like a drinking club. But what it became was one of America's most terrorizing hate groups of all time. They still have over 14 different stations throughout the country, mainly in the South, and also in states like Pennsylvania, Indiana, and so on and so forth. Honestly, I believe in 2023, they're in every state in this country. You know, let's keep going. So that's where the name come from. They were started in 1865. So yeah, they were said to be very educated college kids as well, because they were, veterans of the Civil War, and that's what, the younger kids were the main soldiers in the Civil War, because, it was very well known that the young bucks, the strong guys, they would definitely go fight, whether you were north or south, black or white. By 1864, all hands was on deck. Even after 1865, the war still was going on in places like Arkansas and Tennessee. So again, this was started in Pulaski, Tennessee in 1865. So they would haunt people and freed slaves. That's why the very first concept of the Ku Klux Klan outfit that you see and that you still see today, they look like ghosts. Actually look really silly. Nathan Bedford Forrest, a Confederate war general, he was their first leader. They had elected him as the leader because he was well known as a great general in the Civil War, and possibly one of the most racist people in the South, aside from the former president of the Confederacy. See, the KKK and the Confederacy are hand in hand. The daughters of the Confederacy, the KKK, all of these white nationalists, you hear this term, they all come from Nathan Bedford Forrest. He realized that they lost the war, but they can still maintain their supremacy. So that's why you see the statues of him and different things like that. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but I definitely wanted to put that in here and let you know how serious it is when it comes to the KKK. They once he became the leader, the hierarchy came into order, and that's when you get the different terms and things like that. And if you noticed, the hierarchy name of their ranks is also really obscure and odd, like Grand Clip or Grand Clad and Grand or Nighthawk and Grand Imperial Wizard, Imperial Dragon, Grand Cyclops, even. Like, I have the manual actually to the Ku Klux Klan. I was able to find that. You can find that on the internet right now. That's how accessible all of this information is, as well as hate groups. So, during the 1868 election, from Arkansas to Georgia, thousands of black people were killed for trying to vote in that election. By 68, the Ku Klux Klan was very popular and very well known as an intimidation group. They weren't really seen as terrorists yet, but 1868 was like, that was the incident that really took it over. They were still lynching and terrorizing black people and people who were sympathizers of the Reconstruction. Restabilizing the Union and bringing all the states back under the Union, because that was a battle that was fought for decades after the Civil War as well by the federal government. And a lot of the things that we have today now, with the federal government being stationed in every state, is a direct result of the Civil War. So just a little bug for your ear right there. So yeah, 1868, they killed thousands of black people from Arkansas to Georgia, and they disbanded after that, which was called the first era of the Ku Klux Klan, because they felt like, hey, the Jim Crow laws, the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment is passed. The Jim Crow laws are going to prevent them from voting, and it'll also promote white supremacy anyway, because separate but equal. But as we know now, during the Reconstruction era, it wasn't equal, and the living conditions and the way black people were treated was terrible. And the Ku Klux Klan was basically the figurehead behind this. There was known to be a high society of people, to where if you joined the KKK during the early 1900s and late 1800s, you were considered to be a person who had been, it had been like a Cub Scout or a Boy Scout. It was a rite of passage. They would have letters and pamphlets inviting young white men to join the Ku Klux Klan and demand their supremacy over other races. And it wasn't just black people, it was immigrants coming in as well. And I'll talk more about that in a minute here. I won't be too long because this is a lot of information, and most people really don't care to sit through it because of the trauma that comes with it. But I think as black people, we really need to know this because it's our history. It's something that's not only been whitewashed, redlined into Northern society, which I'm going to talk about that, but it's also been institutionalized into the 13th Amendment even then, and that still stands today. So, July 21st, 2021 was when the United States Congress, or the Tennessee State Congress, actually voted to have the statue of Nathan Bedford Forrest taken down. 2021, almost 160 years later, 170 years later, they finally voted to take down the statue of a Confederate general in Tennessee. And then guess where they put it? In the Tennessee State Museum. So if you're in Tennessee, you go to the State Museum, hey, you can visit the Confederacy, and they have ranks as well in the KKK. So again, the KKK isn't exclusive to men. They accept white women as well. I just watched a documentary of a white woman about 4 years ago. This was posted, and she had joined the KKK. She said even her parents didn't even know. These people are secretly doing this, and thousands and thousands of them have committed terrible acts of crime against my people that look like me, and people of minorities, whether they're Asian, Jewish, immigrants, Arabs. If you're not a white, quote unquote, naturalized American, then you're considered to be an enemy or opposition to the Klan. It's very well known that if you were trying to vote and if you were an activist, they were targeting you. If you held political office as a black man, you were targeted. That's where you get the cross burnings and the cross lightings. The cross lightings are said to be as a warning to those who they deemed were like a problematic, is what they would say. Like if you were trying to vote or trying to get a law passed, like the Civil Rights Act and like the 13th Amendment, they would target you, and you would have a cross burning in front of your front lawn, or a cross lighting done. A cross burning is what they usually do at their Klan meetings, which usually typically they chant whatever, whatnot. I don't even want to say it, even though I know what they say. So they do that, and then they eat, and then they go home. And I learned this from Daryl Davis, which I'll address more going forward. So, Nathan Bedford Forrest was the first leader of the Ku Klux Klan. They disbanded in the late 1800s. In the early 1900s, they came back. In 1915, they were revived, and that's when they implicated Jewish people and immigrants as well, and rebolstered their base, saying, hey, the immigrants are coming in, they're taking our jobs, they're taking our money, white power, and that's their second era. And in 1925, they led a march in Washington, D.C., and at the time, they had over 4 million members, and this is at the height of it. So these guys this is when they have those pamphlets coming out and recruiting the young men are joining. If you were lucky, if your state was lucky, you didn't have any KKK members in your legislature. But most states did. And from the top all the way to the bottom, in every facet of society, it was just, if every, but different facets of high society were KKK members. People talk about the Illuminati, and people talk about if the moon landing was faked. People talk about all these bullshit conspiracies when one's sitting right in your face the whole time. They're called the Ku Klux Klan, and it's not a conspiracy. They're a real thing that's still here. So I know I'm late to the party, but if we're gonna talk about the KKK, we gotta talk about the birth of a nation. That movie is. I watched it. It was really, really boring, really, really stupid. It portrayed black people terribly. It's a part in the movie where the Black Congress, what they claimed to be, had overtaken the government and they were rising up and they were eating chicken wings with their feet on the desk, portraying us terribly and inaccurately, which is the worst insult. So that was shown at the White House in February 18th of 1915. The first movie ever shown in the White House was The Birth of a Nation. And the president at the time was President Woodrow Wilson. 1924, Disney produced a short film where kids were portraying KKK members. And you can look that up. Go ahead, look that up on YouTube. Look it up on the internet. It's some crazy stuff. So, 1925, they disbanded again because of infighting and the rise of technology, and the government was very much so against them, and they tried to financially bankrupt them, the FBI. During the early 20s as well, that's when they were kind of getting used to being a hidden secret society, and that's when they were like, hey, the Jim Crow laws are going to take care of everything. But what's said to be one of the worst eras, the 1960s during the Civil Rights Movement. They were rebolstered again. They revived again. And just so you get a little bit of backstory here and a little bit of statistics, let me tell you a few things. They don't use the right hand to do their little KKK salute. And if you notice, it looks just like the Nazi salute. But they don't use their right hand because they want to distinguish themselves from Nazis. So if you see someone do the little Hitler hand sign and they're using their right hand, they're a Nazi. If they do the little Hitler sign and use their left hand, they're KKK. And look up videos of the KKK, you probably notice they're using their left hand. Also, from 1877, between 1877 and 1950, the KKK were responsible for over 4,000 deaths of men, women, and children. That is a fact, a known fact as well. I believe it's until the 1980s when technology really came forward, because if you really do your homework, it's been known to be the golden era of serial killers and murderers between 1970 and 2000. We've had more serial killers and more deaths by serial killers during that time, and that's where our tech boom was kind of happening. So let's go back here. 1963, there were only 35 black millionaires in the entire nation, while the KKK was on their third rise and considerably the most prominent due to technology and national news coverage. They were starting to receive exposure that they didn't know would become the downfall. And in 1963, respectively, the Civil Rights Act was signed. And also 6 million black people moved north, which is called the Great Migration. I know most people learned that in grade school, but what we may not have known is that it was due mainly to racism, the KKK, and the South in general. They were still in the secession type of, Just like how they are now with the Confederate flags claiming the states' rights and the liberties. No, that's not what that stands for. That flag was raised to keep me in chains. That flag was raised so your state can have the right to own people. That's the right that you're sitting here fighting for. And people on the far right sit here and use these same ideals and same type of talking words and buzzwords like lost cause, forgotten Americans. You gotta think that's coming from the KKK. That was their whole thing. They used these Ku Klux and Cyclops and Grand Wizard words, and they still do, even more now. They use these words in this hidden language to really mean their supremacy. And no American hate group has risen to power and been able to do as much damage as they have. So, again, the 1960s, we all know what the Klan was doing during that time. They were killing people. They were in the courts. They were they were at the White House, or I mean, they were at the Senate and Congress. They were everywhere. And yeah, so it's really disheartening when you learn about this and learn how even to this day there are people who are in the KKK who are sheriffs, police officers, doctors, lawyers, congressmen, and it's totally illegal. It's totally illegal. They're not breaking the law as long as they don't commit a crime. They can go to their meetings. They can recruit people actively during the Ferguson riots in 2014. They were doing that while the Black Lives Matter movement was being born. David Duke and them was pumping up the white supremacists and the white nationalists and the KKK. Those are all hand in hand. So when you hear far right, when I hear far right, I think of the KKK. Simply because of the history and what I know and what is being said, what these people are saying, the things that they're saying. Black people, what do you have to lose? Donald Trump said that. I'm like, whoa, that sounds like something that a KKK member who wants us to vote for him would say. What do you have to lose? What do you have that's valuable? That's what it really means. Yeah, so people can sit there, no, the world is flat, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay. The KKK is real, and they're a problem. So there's a story of this guy named Daryl Davis. He's a great jazz musician, and he was being interviewed by Joe Rogan, and I caught wind of this video. It was amazing. The story he told. He helped to convert over 200 KKK members away from the Klan. He was a pianist, and he has a degree in jazz and is a musician by trade. And he's quoted saying, "How can you hate me when you don't even know me?" And that was his main question that he got from learning about the Klan and learning about white supremacists. And he said that he never had experienced that until he was about 10 years old, and his parents sat him down and told him about racism. And when he had actually interviewed one of the Grand Wizards, it's very famous and very well known. That's why I'm late to the party. But Daryl Davis, look him up. He interviewed one of the Klan members, and he's very well known from converting them away from the Klan and their ideals in those hateful ways, in the terrible, ignorant ways of thinking, because what breeds hatred is ignorance and fear. He's quoted saying this, as well as, how can you hate me when you don't even know me? And I think we all should take a look at that and really look deep inside ourselves and ask ourselves, are we being prejudiced? Because, I got a fitted cap on, and, it's hard to explain. It really is, because it goes deep, and you can't change a person's heart. That's on them. You know what I mean? And just as much as we have racism in this country, we have a lot of different deep seated issues. And the KKK is not one of those groups that we should ever sympathize with, that we should ever feel sorry for. But we should definitely find a way to understand why they think the way that they do and what we can do to change their ways of thinking and their ways of trying to be a supreme race, because we all know it's not a scientific fact. It's completely irrelevant when it comes to supreme, your race, that has nothing to do with how talented or intelligent or successful you are. There's a lot of measurements of success. You know, you can't put it on just, hey, my people have the most money, so we're the best. Yeah. Or my people have the most land, so we're the best. Or no, my people were here first, so we're the best. Nobody's the best. Nobody's better than anybody, especially not because of their skin color. So, this is again part of my series here on the world history of slavery. I know I probably didn't even catch many other things that the KKK has done and is doing now. I did read that there are about 13 branches of the KKK in the country as of 2021. I'm going to post up during this video different pieces of information I found, and I'm gonna also leave I'll try to leave a few links because I gotta edit this. So when you see this, it'll be probably, what is it, like 9 a.m. right now, so when you see this, it'll probably be way later in the day, maybe not even today. Yeah, this was really rough. This is my third video. Like, it's been haunting, you know. Just like during the, like, it's so much stuff going through my head. Like the KKK, their first robes were brown because they wanted to look like dead Civil War veterans and black Civil War veterans who were dead, and they would dress up as dead black men and go and spook people out. And the white hoods came because they wanted to look like ghosts and more secretive and scare the hell out of people. Like, and it's just terrible. It's just terrible when you learn these things and learn the real truth, because they're not going to teach you this in school. They're going to teach you about fucking Lewis and Clark and shit. When a bunch of stuff that's really not even been. Yeah, man. So, I'm sorry. I'm late to the party. I hope you like my new glasses. But hey, at least I made it. I'll see y'all soon. The World History of Slavery series, this was going to be a part of that series, and more to come on this. Actually, I think next I'm going to be diving deep into Jim Crow and the actual Jim Crow laws, and how both of my parents have experienced that. Rest in peace to Dad. I love you, Dad. The anniversary of his passing is coming soon. He passed away from liver cancer in 2020 at the height of the pandemic. He was #1 on the liver list. So I'm going to have a moment of silence for my father.